Hello everyone, we are us, we are back. This is a Video Game Book Club podcast. Today, folks, we're bringing you Alex's big one, in many ways. That's right, folks, we continue the summer of Resi with Resident Evil 2, 1998. I'm David, he's Alex, by the way. How are you today, Alex?
I'm pretty good.
Surrounded by Resident Evil games.
Resident Evil by God 2. Yes, I am well, I am good and well, I'm ready to go. I've enjoyed my 4 playthroughs of this game, plus watching yours.
I'm glad you've played, well, yeah, I mean, effectively you've gone through this game 6 times in the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've watched most of both my playthroughs.
Yeah, I have, haven't I? I forgot I watched a lot of the Leon one.
Mm-hmm. It's, I guess, this, I don't know, is this for you, the big podcast of the summer? Or is this the biggest, of the Resident Evil podcasts that we've done, is this the big one?
It feels like it. It certainly feels like it. Well, it could be. But I think I'm more confident of your liking of this than I am of 4. This, of course, signals the end of us covering the original trilogy.
Yeah,
in their original forms.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have done a lot of Resident Evil games now. We've got a list of them somewhere, right? I wonder if I can quickly pull it up and we can.
We should have the ranks list from the last episode. We are very close to approaching the end of the tank controls as well.
Have we almost played all of the tanks? Have we?
We basically only have Code Veronica, and technically the original 4 has sort of tank controls as well.
So it does, yeah.
And that's it. Everything else is, well, I don't. Yeah, I don't think we'd be touching anything else.
What have we got left in terms of like the big Resident Evil games that we haven't yet made a podcast about?
Probably just Code Veronica and 4.
For Code Veronica and 4. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to do 6, so that's not going to ever.
We did try. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. I guess, big ones. There aren't any after that, because then you're into the realms of Revelations, Outbreak. I don't know what else there is that we need to touch.
We're getting on up there. I was thinking, is Resident Evil 4, we didn't do that as part of a summer, did we?
We didn't do that, and we also didn't do Village as part of the summer. We did both of those when they released. Out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then did we play 7 in anticipation of 8?
Yes, you got it. So that wasn't part of the summer either. The first summer we did was the oddest one, because that's the one we did 0, Dino Crisis, and 5.
What a combo that was.
and then we did 1, 2, 3 last year, just the opposite versions of what we're doing this year.
Yes.
But before we get into Resi, you've had a bit of a Dreamcast time of it, and I've had a lot of Ridge Racer going on for some reason.
How's it been going?
Really bloody well. After I'd played 2 playthroughs of Resident Evil 2 on my PlayStation Vita on my holiday with my family. I didn't know what else to do, but I was really in the mood for PlayStation stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And watched an excellent video on Ridge Racer, the history of Ridge Racer on YouTube, that I will link in the description of this podcast, that basically made me just want to collect all the Ridge Racers, because I already had some from KDB's ramblings on the rankings show. The rankings show, the draft shows that we do. And so I tried Ridge Racer Type 4 because that was very well spoken about, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, is it?
So,
yeah.
So then I followed that up by recently buying 6, which is backwards compatible in a beautiful 60 frames on Series X, and I've been really enjoying that game. It's just no frills, drifty McDrifterson.
It's I was trying to think if it's made a comeback, but I don't think it really has. Arcade racers are sort of thin on the ground these days. It's a sort of a bit like the platformer. There's like a golden age that is just sort of slowly drifted away, and there's not much left of it now. It's all, I mean, the
It's
racing genre is basically Gran Turismo
yeah,
and Forza these days.
and probably an F1
Yeah.
somewhere, I guess. Yeah, people don't seem to want to play arcade races, and if they do, they're kart racing,
Mhm.
or they are indie games like that Overjump Rally that I tried.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, sorry, not Overjump Rally, Old School Rally,
Old
which is
school rally, yes.
that is incredibly bare bones. That really needs quite a lot of work. I think the handling they did for that is really good, but it's early access as fuck, so
It's
I
got a
won't be
long way to
touching it
go.
again for
Yeah.
a while. Yeah, it really has. But yeah, I'm having an absolute blast with that. You know, one game I actually wish they well, that you can add split second to that as well, because I've been playing that in anticipation of next episode.
Yes.
One game I wish was backwards compatible on Series X is Blur. Did you ever play that?
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it? That's the one that came out around about the same time as Split Second. Because
Is
I
it?
was, yeah, I'm sure it was. So, not, I don't think anybody was watching. Maybe Murray, but anyway, I don't think anyone was really watching. But I was sitting sort of contemplating to myself. There was like an odd period, like like every so often there'll be like a movie franchise that come out, like A Bug's Life and Ants sort of came along at the
Yeah,
same time, and it's just
yeah.
like why. I mean, there must be a reason, but like, yeah, I remember thinking there was like this odd like mini renaissance of arcade racers, like Blur and Split Second just sort of popped up on the radar around about the same
Mhm.
time and then vanished again. Blur is meant to be excellent, and
Yeah.
it's been, I have played it, but it's been many many years since I played it, and I think
Mm.
when I turned Split Second on to play it, I was expecting Blur and I got Split Second. So Blur's got things you can like power ups and things.
It's kind of Mario Kart, isn't it, for
Yes.
grown ups?
Sorry, why did Blur come up? But I'm glad
Because
it
I just
did.
wish it was backwards compatible,
Yeah,
but it's not. I mean, I've got an Xbox 360 set up, ready to go, but
I want to
I'd
play that
rather
now.
it get a bit of a
Vinted,
lick of paint to it.
Vinted,
Maybe there's a
get
PC
the
version that's okay, but I think the poor performance of
Blur.
that plus Split Second is why we don't really see any of those games anymore. The closest we get is Forza Horizon, which has
Yeah.
suited me fine for long enough, but
Oh, Blur
I've got a
holds its,
hankering for some more old school.
holds its value. It's like 20 or
Yeah, it's like
15 to 20 quid ish.
yeah, I was in CEX yesterday and it was 15 quid, and I just thought I checked if it was backwards compatible and it wasn't. I thought maybe not then. So instead,
We'll
I
have
bought Gunfighter 2, the Return of Jesse James or some shit for £4
Gunfighter
to
2.
play with my light guns. I think it's called that. Hold on.
Is that a PS2 game?
Yeah.
Hey, this looks cool. Oh, I really want a light gun game. Maybe we should do a
Yeah.
top. Maybe one of our like future episodes needs to be like a listicle of light gun games.
You have to get yourself a Kurt,
Yeah.
a CRT, before you can get involved in that. But I don't know if I told you that when I was trying to play light gun games, I thought I was Billy Big Bollocks by getting like Point Blank, and
Yeah.
because I got my I got my second CRT TV off that old Tom Thumb, bought a second PlayStation 2, one of the original ones, so I could stand it up next to it and fit it on where I have it.
So have you got a dedicated light gun station nowadays?
I have, yeah. I'll see if I can turn the camera around actually so you can see it. There it is.
There
The
he
guns
is.
are on top. I also bought a light gun for the original Xbox as well, so I could play House of the Dead 3 and basically nothing else, because no other light gun games are on that system.
I
that
don't
work.
know. Now you're saying that, I don't know if I've ever seen a light gun for an Xbox.
It's not actually an official one. It is this fucking Super Soaker bullshit from Mad Cats.
Oh,
This is really an episode for the YouTube viewers, by the way.
yes. I have not. These are like. Did they ever do an official one?
No, they didn't, because there's only one fucking game. It was just that. There's I think you can get silent scope, but that needs a different gun, which is utter bullshit. But anyway, so I thought I was awesome, and I whipped Point Blank out that I'd recently purchased, stuck it in the old PS2, and light gun didn't do anything.
Oh no.
And then I realized that PlayStation 1 light gun games use a different light gun. So I had to, as you may have noticed, there's 2 light guns on top of that TV because I had to buy a second light gun for I think it's the G-Force something or other,
Yes.
rather than the G-Con 2, which is for the PS2. So I have a PS1 and a PS2 light gun now in my
Legend.
dedicated station. But Point Blank is, I mean, that fucking holds up. That will hold up forever.
Was it Point Blank? Joel McDonald, my friend, for listeners. He must have spent hundreds of pounds in the arcade when we were kids playing Point Blank. He was like some sort of Point Blank Rain Man for a while.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was very good. You could put money in it, and it's probably the only time I've ever seen someone do this in an arcade. Just like put money into an arcade machine and just complete the game.
Yeah, the only time I've ever completed an arcade game is on a ferry on the school trip to France, where Chris and I completed Time Crisis 2. And
Time Crisis
he had
2, oh my God.
£21 coins, and I must have taken at least 12 of those 20, if not 15 of them.
Oh my God, Time Crisis 2. Oh, I want some light gun games now.
I mean, they're so fun. I just, the only problem is that I think the setup I've got here isn't very good, so my arm hurts very, very quickly because I'm kind of like leaning on the table and trying to aim. I thought that would help, but for some reason it doesn't. I think the TV's too high up.
Can you play the third game in Die Hard trilogy on PS1 with a light
I
gun?
assume so.
So I never did that as a kid. It was just a controller whenever I played that game. So I just never really played the third game.
Oh yeah.
It's not fun
Wait,
to do that.
the second game. The third game isn't the third game like a racing game in the taxi when you're.
I thought I was maybe getting them mixed in my head. The second one was the taxi, but you could be right.
Yeah, I think the second one is like
I can't remember the movies. Yeah, the light gun game is the airport one at like Christmas. Well, they're all set during Christmas, aren't they?
Definitely the first 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's me. Tell us about your Dreamcast adventure.
I just really love Redream. It is such a lovely program to use for emulation. Like you download the file and it looks nice. The UI is lovely. You download the game, put it in the folder, and it just works. It like all the artwork gets added for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, playing Tony Hawk for upcoming magazine of Sega Force. So I just thought, I'm just going to keep going and download a whole bunch of other games. So just started poking about in those. I need to go and do. I might do it after this podcast. I'm going to download Sega Rally. I haven't got to that yet.
What are your current highlights?
I'm trying to think now. What have I got?
Because you know what I proofread that Tony Hawk article that you wrote for Sega Force Mega, and it's going to be it's going to look absolutely gorgeous.
It does.
But when I was reading it, it wasn't really much of a critique of how the Dreamcast version actually plays compared to the others. It was like more of a historical piece with your own like input with importance to you, which is obviously that's more interesting to read for most people because you can just read a review of the game. You don't need to be told if the game's good anymore. So, but I did want to ask you how you feel about playing that specific version, considering we've now played the remake of 1, which has all the stuff from 4 in it, like reverts and manuals and stuff. Is it too bare bones to be enjoyable, or did you?
I think it's as good as it ever was, to be honest. Obviously, like if you're going to play, like I'm going to play a skateboarding game, and specifically want to play a Tony Hawk, the definitive version of that is obviously the remake, and that's the one that most people should play. But I don't think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is a bad game at all. It takes a minute to sort of turn your brain off to reverse and things like that. But as soon as you've done that, I was having as much fun playing that game as I ever have. I think it's fantastic. Excellent. Do you know the big thing that actually was quite shocking was how much better Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 looks in comparison to the first one? So I've loaded up Pro Skater 2, and the models are so much better, like the skater models. And the game's only like a year apart. So I don't even know if they're like a full 12 months apart. But it is so much better, seriously. You should take a quick look at that, because I don't remember it being like that, and I was quite stunned. Perhaps it's just the Dreamcast version specifically, but yeah, it looked
Mm.
fantastic. Um,
Well, I'll take a long look at it in an upcoming episode where we celebrate 25 years of all of it. So
Hell yeah! Oh, I can't
I'll
wait. Do you know
definitely
the
look
ones
out
I
for
really want to dig into is Thug, the Thug ones. I've
that.
not played
Definitely.
them really since they came out.
I've been hit with a wave of thug videos in my YouTube feed.
Oh, have you?
I don't know. I must have just watched one.
Yeah.
And then people, it's just got my YouTube feed's just gone mental with. Would you like to see all these retrospectives on people thinking Thug is the best of the Tony Hawk games? Well, I've got both of them, 1 and 2 on the Xbox,
I
so
think
they're
it.
getting played.
I'd be interested. I'm going to go back and play it. I'd be interested to see if it is, because I was trying to like, I sort of like trying to remind myself of the future Tony Hawk games, sort of after I'd finished. And
Mm,
obviously, like, there's one which sort of sets the template. Two, they say themselves is the sort of definitive game that they sort of always wanted to make, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
3 and 4 are just sort of more of that, aren't they? And then
3 seems to be the one everyone thinks is the best from what I've been reading
oh, do they?
recently.
Okay,
Hmm.
because that's the one like I've definitely I was watching videos of it. I've definitely played it, but I can't really recall much from it apart from like there's like that's I think it's like the odd song and the odd level. But yeah, for I'm 1 and 2 are much more sort of indelibly
Oh, definitely.
like inked into my brain than that one. And then the third, then they went to Thug after that, didn't they? And then there was the was it Project 8 where like Skate had basically come along and started eating their lunch.
It was either that or American Wasteland.
Or
I can't
yeah,
remember which one came first.
and down American Wasteland went all cell shady kind of, didn't it?
Yeah, I think I actually ended up only owning that on the GBA. I may even still have that. Um, the Tony Hawk game that breaks my heart the most because
Right.
we can't play it is 2X.
What's that one? 2X.
It is a enhanced version of Tony Hawk 1 and 2 for the Xbox, plus 5 original levels.
Oh,
And then it
cool.
had some elements of Tony Hawk 3 in it added to it, but it never came out anywhere but North America. So you need to get a chipped Xbox to be able to play it. Or
Okay.
maybe you can play it on emulation, I guess.
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't know if it's one of those ones that works well or not on Zemu or whatever they call it, but I'm so gutted we can't play that
Yeah, that's a shame.
legally anyway.
We'll have to dig into that and see if we can, because I kind of want to see that now.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, but going a bit of Dreamcast, I'm going to do Sega Rally after this podcast because I forgot I said I was going to download that and then wandered
Hmm.
off. Played some soccer game, Virtua Striker, which was not that great to be honest.
No, it's a letdown.
Yeah. Blue Stinger. I want to play more of that. I sort of poked at it.
Is that what did you say that was again? That's survival? No.
Survive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's that one.
it is a horror game, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I ended up playing that one because that was a game that almost that meant that we almost never got Tony Hawk Pro Skater in a Dreamcast because it sold so badly
Oh
in
yeah.
Japan that essentially they were saying that or um uh, Activision were thinking about just not bothering to release games in the Dreamcast anymore because they think it wasn't worth it. It's also funny,
Mm.
I guess, that um, Tony Hawk Pro Skater on Dreamcast isn't published or, I guess, ported slash developed by either of the companies that you would expect it to be.
Yeah.
Crave Entertainment, I think, published it instead of. So basically, the only reason it ended up coming to Dreamcast was because they just sort of sold the rights to put it on Dreamcast. So basically, they just divorced any sort of risk in putting it on the system. So
Yeah.
it was ported by Treyarch
Yeah.
and published by Crave Entertainment. And then I
Yeah.
think
So
it
no Neversoft and no Activision.
no, but their
Mm.
names are plastered all over it as well. I guess because well, it's their
So
games, isn't it?
why
Yeah,
edit out all the assets, I guess.
yeah, exactly. But
Takes time.
that is the obviously like yeah, let's sort of round that out. The to your original question, the definitive one to play and the one that probably most people should play is definitely the remake. But the first game is still very, very good. And if you're wanting to play the first game, the version to play is that Dreamcast version because it's
Yeah.
just so much better. Animations are better, apparently, more detailed.
Mm.
Redid all the sort of assets and stuff so that they're much clearer. And then play on Redream because then remade assets, so it's the best looking version of the game on a program that makes the game run and look better anyway. So yeah, that's the way to do it.
That is the win.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about that, Alex. We're here to talk
No,
about
not yet.
Resident Evil.
Yes. Preamble over.
Yes.
Game time.
I was gonna say, it was more of an extended ramble.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. This game was released on the 21st of January 1998 and developed and published by Capcom. I'm surprised it's only got a Metacritic of 89. I thought it
Me
should
too.
have been into the 90s, especially because it's
Yeah.
like one of the. I don't know. I was going to say it's the sort of the game that everyone thinks of, but maybe 4 is sort of stolen that crown. I guess it's up for debate anyway.
Mm-hmm.
General impressions, Alex. Do you want to? We'll just kick things off by sort of having a bit of a loosey goosey discussion about the game, what we think of it, how it holds up, things that stick out in our memory. I'd like to talk about the sort of A/B playthroughs and things because I was sort of trying
Yes.
to, and I'm full disclosure, I may have made an arse of it, but I was trying to research the plot of the game just to make sure that I had it right. Seems that the canon seems to be Claire A, Leon B.
I read on the Resident Evil wiki that there is no official canon
There is no official canon. There's
from
nothing
this
like
game.
in future games that means they have to have picked one for it to work.
I think they kind of save themselves by having Ada come back
Okay.
either way, right? I think she
Yeah, she
comes
does.
back and
Yeah,
gives
she
a
does.
rocket launcher for most scenarios.
Yeah.
I did read something that suggested that because of the fact that you can split the stories and they happen in slightly differently, then there is no official canon
Okay.
that came out of the way this ended. It's just kind of like, oh, Claire's still alive and all that stuff is still going on.
Well,
Ada's still alive in 4 and Claire's in Code Veronica and blah, 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 blah.
well, essentially, Claire A, Leon B is not the version I played. What did I do? Leon A, Claire B. So
Yeah, which is what most
I've
people
tried to
probably
write
would do.
plot on a game that I haven't played, essentially. So it may be
It's
full of holes and it may be
it's
messed up ever so slightly.
it's
But
largely the same plot for everything, like for each variation, just with Mr. X involved instead.
right,
So,
okay.
like, if you were to play Claire A now, you're not going to get that much different in the plot aside from some of the Mr. X bits. I think from memory and from my notes that I made, so I haven't looked this up, the only noticeable difference that I found was in Leon A, Ada turns on him by pointing the gun at him
Yeah.
and asking him to
Yeah.
give her the virus sample, is it?
Yeah.
And obviously she gets shot by a net and then falls to her death, even though she didn't have any bullets in her gun anyway. In Leon B, Leon is cornered by Mr. X, and he's like, then Ada shoots Mr. X, who then turns to her, lifts her up. She shoots Mr. X in the face. Mr. X falls into the self-destruct thing. Or no, does he throw her into it? He throws her into the self-destruct mechanism and then falls into the smelting pit, I think.
Whereas in my version, he
And
did
then,
his hammer punch on the
yes,
console and then sort of fell over trying to chase the locket as it was thrown.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, but yeah, so in that one, then Ada tells Leon that she loves him and kisses him, and then dies. Doesn't die though because she gives him a rocket launcher later on. So that's the main noticeable difference I saw. I don't think Claire's A and B playthroughs have anything as significantly different like that.
Ultimately, I'm not sure it means anything to the plot, but the difference in sort of my attempted research of Claire A, Leon B was Sherry has the locket on basically for the entire of Claire B until the end, and then Claire says, he's after the locket, give it to me, and then she chucks it to him, and then she just launches
Yep.
it away. Whereas it
Yep.
seems like Ada gets a hold of the locket at some point in Claire A.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty
sees-
significant, I suppose.
Yeah. And then Annette.
So it seems like that's both of those things are set around the way that Mr. X goes into the smelting pit.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the fundamental change in those two bits for both Leon and Claire, is that it's to do with the way Mr. X gets falling in there.
So is Mr. X in Leon's campaign?
He's in Leon B, yeah.
Interesting.
The way you see him is all
Leon,
the same except the end.
So does it essentially flip them round? So does Leon enter the police station in the way that Claire B does? Is that
Yes.
how it? Right. Okay. So that's how.
But he still gets the same thing with. Well, he obviously doesn't see Marvin at the start anymore.
No.
Interesting point. Side note about Marvin. Now, shoot me down in a ball of flames if I'm wrong, dear listeners who know more than me. But from what I'm pretty certain, when you see Marvin as Leon in the police station, he says, "There was an incident in the mansion involving zombies." When you see him as Claire, he says, "involving zombie-like creatures."
Does he?
Which just made me think, like, does he trust Leon more because Leon's also a cop than he does Claire, to tell Claire the real, like, to confirm they're zombies to Claire?
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
almost, I don't know. That's just a thought that I had there that I made notes of. If I've got that dialogue wrong, then this is all completely bullshit and it'll get cut out. But I'm pretty sure that's what. Yeah, that was one difference I noted. But yes, the way that they started the different parts of the station is the same for Claire B and Leon B. The same way that Claire A and Leon A starts in the same side of it. And they both see Mr. X come out of the helicopter, and they both, fight him in the same places, just slightly differently for the way he falls in the smelting pot.
Do you have a favourite playthrough? Or are they all sort of bled into one at this point?
I don't think I can separate, really. I do like the additional threat of Mr. X, and there are some funny moments with him, like where he bursts through walls out of nowhere.
Yeah,
he looks stupid, and he's gone for so long doing God knows what.
Who knows?
Trying and failing to find a hat that he somehow finds in the remake.
Because I was laughing at that today when you were watching it, like, they unleash him and then they basically do nothing with him then for like the next hour.
Yeah, they just drop him on you, and then he just has to sit down and waits. I guess Leon A, Claire B is the standard of the two playthroughs. So Leon A is probably my favorite if you want to go that way, because I've probably played it the most, and I think I prefer the stuff with Ada to the stuff with Sherry and Claire.
Yeah.
So I would say Leon A.
Yeah, it took me a while to sort of warm up to Sherry. I was like, who is this idiot for a while, but I kind of liked her by the end. But she just does a lot of screaming and sprinting in different directions.
And just, I mean, she's determined to go after her dad, who she knows is trying to basically murder everybody and is a horrible monster, but it is still her dad. None of us can hopefully empathize and relate to Sherry's story, because her dads have not absolutely gorged on G-virus vials when they've been shot by mercenaries. So we're all okay, I think.
For the time being, at least.
My dad's still got a few years left in him to give it a whirl.
Yeah.
He was a scientist of sorts, so you never know.
Yeah. I think of our two dads, he's the one that might G-virus himself.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. What about you? What did you prefer out of your... I mean, you've only done Leon A, Claire B this time. What did you prefer out of those two?
Probably, I mean, like I say, I think now that I've played through them both, I think, I don't know, maybe this is a cop-out, so I will answer your question, but my gut is actually that, like, a sort of A-B playthrough is one playthrough. They're different.
I agree. I agree.
I think Leon, purely because, like I said, it took me a little while to warm up to Sherry, and it's not annoying in the slightest, but if I'm like nitpicking, I don't want to shepherd Sherry around. I want her to just go away, and you don't have to really shepherd Ada around. She sort of looks after herself. Whereas exactly. Sherry likes a wee squat if you forget what you're doing and run off. I also got lost, like utterly lost twice. I think this is a David problem rather than the game. Like I just had no idea what I was doing. Like twice in the Claire playthrough today, just had no clue what was going on.
Yeah, I think I got stuck on the Leon B playthrough as well. Maybe I did on the Claire B, I can't remember. But my Leon B ended up being like, was it like 2 hours 37 or something in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty pleased by that. That would have got me 100 points. More on that cryptic clue later.
But yeah. General thoughts. I guess like where does this sit for
Oh,
you
yeah.
in the pantheon of Resident Evil games? Has your opinion shifted or morphed or evolved or matured in any way, having gone back to this? I mean, you've played it so much, probably hasn't. I don't
No.
know.
I think as time goes on and I get older, I think I just love it more because it just feels so comfortable now
Yeah.
that it's just, and I can, well, as I just said, I can do it in about 3 hours.
Hmm.
So it never constitutes much of a time sink. And it's just like a refreshing memory test to prove I've still got all my cognitive functions to sort of be like, hey, I still know where I'm going. I just think I think KDB said it on the ranking episode, but I just think it's so special. I think comparing it to the first game, nothing about Resident Evil 2 is not better.
Yeah.
Like no element is not better in 2 than it is in 1. Like the graphics are better, the enemies look better, the animations are better. They actually have animations when they're injured and stuff now. Obviously, the script is better, the voice acting is so much better, and I still think it's actually good. I think the area is better. The guns are
agree with the
better.
area better, guns better. Yeah.
Bosses are better. It's just everything about it is just better.
I guess it's just like I guess it's to be expected that they've sort of honed it, but I'm surprised sort of how much better it is given. So when I was sort of doing my research for this podcast, that they started development on this just like a month after
Yeah.
they'd released the first one. So like they didn't even sort of let the paint dry on the first game, and they were sort of kicking off on the next one.
Well, they were broke as fuck, right? Capcom were in real trouble until Resident Evil's original success.
Really came along and saved them.
So I think they were just desperate to claw back even more money from this new franchise they just created because sales of everything else was kind of a stagnating point in this
What
period.
else did Capcom have on the go around that period? What would they have been up to? I'm trying to think. Let's have a look.
Well, they probably were. Yeah, they were probably not doing too much with Mega Man, and if they were, I guess that was on the downturn once the PlayStation era set in.
Capcom never want to do anything with Mega Man. I don't really get it.
Yeah, I don't think Street Fighter was obviously at the level that it had been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not. They weren't doing Street Fighter 2 stuff at this point. They'd moved on to Third Strike or Alpha or whatever. That, while being revered by hardcore fans of the series, I don't think has sold anywhere near the level that 2 did.
Yeah, they don't have a lot going on, do they, during this time period? Like they've got a few franchises, but all of these are later. Like Onimusha would have been after that.
Onimusha actually apparently used part of the development engine for Resident Evil 1.5. So the original Resident Evil 2 that got scrapped, that game's engine was reused for Onimusha, whereas they kind of redid the engine for the second version of 2.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so they've got Devil May Cry, that would have been after. Monster Hunter would have been after. Mega Man obviously would have been around. Dragon's Dogma after. Marvel vs. Capcom, would that have been around? Bionic Commando was done by that point. Dead Rising hadn't come along.
Yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom was probably in the works because that came out on Dreamcast a couple of years later. So probably in the works, but not necessarily guaranteed to be a success or anything at that point. And you know, they lost some people too, like Kenichi Iwao. He was the scenario writer for Resi 1, but he left. It was weird actually. He seems really like he seemed really compelled to want to leave the company to produce original games. But he created Resident Evil, which was an original game that just did gangbusters. So he then decided to leave because he invented like basically the universe of Resident Evil.
Oh, cool.
Like he created what have I got here? This is from Itchy Tasty. He created the T-Virus, Umbrella Corporation, Stars members, Zombies, Tyrant.
So when did he leave?
He wrote all the diary entries, including even Itchy Tasty. He left in, I think, sometime around 95.
Okay.
And then he went to Square and directed Parasite Eve 2. What a prick. Basically a Resident Evil ripoff. What the fuck are you on about original games? It's not even an original, it's a sequel, you bellend. You've gone away to create a sequel to a less popular game than Resident Evil that then rips off Resident Evil instead of just doing Resident Evil 2. You prick. He then came crawling back later on, apparently.
Crawling back with his tail between his legs.
Yeah.
I was actually, it's interesting that you sort of brought up before about how Resident Evil 2 is like a significantly better game in
Yes.
pretty much every way than the first Resident Evil game. You're right now that you've said that. I'm trying to think of it, and I'm even going through the sort of locations I think are infinitely better in the second game. I don't know. I've got a weird now, and I don't know why, but I've sort of developed a bit of a nostalgic's not the right word because I'm new to Resident Evil, but I've got there's an emotional attachment to the mansion for some reason. I think it's just because it's so iconic.
Rightly so, yeah.
But if you're wanting for me to run around in one, yeah, the police station is far more fun to run around in than the mansion.
I think so.
It's
just because more stuff goes on. I think. I don't think. You know, we don't want to shit on Resi 1 because it's great, and we've just seen in the remake how great that actually is as well.
Yeah.
But there's something about that. About the police station, I agree with you there that I can't quite put my finger on, but I don't know. Partly the soundtrack is a lot better. That probably helps.
Yeah, I wonder. Here I go with my bloody lived in again, but I just feel like when you're walking around the mansion for a lot of the time sort of just feels like this empty, ominous thing with not a lot.
Well, it was supposed to be for a bloke by himself, wasn't it? It was built for what George Trevor thought was just going to be Spencer is like his holiday home. So it's supposed to be an unlived-in house, effectively.
Yeah. Whereas the police station has obviously got a lot more going on in it, and there is sort of like evidence of destruction and fights and sort of a descent into chaos. Right through.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're seeing parts of the streets as well, which is pretty exhilarating back then when you're actually getting to see Raccoon City. Because when Hideki Kamiya first wrote, he was like doing the script and the scenario for the second game when he was apparently he doesn't even know to this day why Shinji Mikami decided he should be the director because he was so new and so young to Capcom at that point. But he when he wrote, like, apparently when he was coming up for the names of like the characters, he said one of the inspirations he got for naming the characters was from pornographic magazines. But
Ada Wong, is that the character?
Well, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Vaguely phallic.
But his original scenario, like, apparently when they read it, they got some external guy. They actually got an external like script writer and stuff in who had written Power Rangers.
Oh, really?
Like TV show, yeah. And he came in and was like, "This is dog shit, mate. Like, it's got no connection to the first game. What are you doing?" And the only connection that he'd written into it at that point to Resident Evil 1 was Raccoon City. And that was basically it. The rest of it, he was just like, nah, I'll do what I want.
So
and then he got like chastised for it.
Did you come across the same thing as well then? So when you were talking about that, I've come across similar things, but in different ways.
Right.
That they sort of, the idea was that Resident Evil 2 would ultimately be the end of the series. And then
I didn't see that.
They decided that. See what I've got written in my notes. See if I can get my wording correct. But let's see.
But while we're on the police station and you're looking at that, like, I do think it's funny. However much we like the police station in Resi 2, it is very funny that they just kind of tacked on the fact that it used to be like a museum, so that it could look weird and have puzzles and shit in it. Because in Resident Evil 1.5. Kamiya's original police station is very much just a functional grey. It's like bog standard police station that you would expect in the States. Whereas obviously this one is just crazy, like Gothic architecture and
Yeah.
all this nonsense going on, like clock towers and all this shit, rape dungeons. Like there is,
Oh,
you
the
don't,
dungeons with
yeah.
the literal burning torches outside.
Absolutely outrageous. Like what needless, ostentatious bollocks before you go take the mayor's daughter in there and do whatever it was that he
Oh
did
my god.
when he failed her.
Yeah,
Chief Irons is the highlight. Sorry, go on.
I've not got a whole load of detail here, but I've got the original. They had planned for Resident Evil 2 to be the end of the series, but I guess something happened, i.e., and now that I'm sort of building on what you said
I.e.,
already, i.e., Capcom needed money,
yeah.
they wanted to create a series that would run on sort of in infinitum, like Gundam or James Bond. So they came up with.
Hmm.
So then, like you're saying, like the only sort of tie up was Raccoon City. Um, so then so their original character was a girl called Elsa.
Yes, Elsa Walker.
Elsa Walker, yeah. So they
Mhm.
basically dumped her off and reworked and replaced Claire Redfield.
Yep,
Seems
that's
like
it.
they kept it. I'll leave it there because I will get to this at some point. But they seem to have kept a lot of Elsa Walker in Claire Redfield. So Elsa Walker was a college student that was also
Mm.
a motorbike racer.
Yep.
So
She's actually
obviously,
wearing her bike leathers throughout
yeah.
the Resident Evil 1.5. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously, yeah, Claire is it. She's in college looking, but then she's sort of left to go looking for Chris. Is that right? I assume he's
Yep.
gone missing. Has he? Has he just sort of
He's
gone
in.
quiet?
He's in Europe,
He's
isn't he?
gone to
According
Europe.
to his
Yeah.
diary that Leon hands to her.
hmm I don't know. I felt like my Leon playthrough sort of abruptly ended quite quickly. I wasn't ready. I don't. Maybe it's just because I was expecting like some sort of like build to a final boss fight, which I feel like I didn't get so much. It happened.
Mhm.
Feels like it happens more than Claire's playthrough
It
because
definitely does. You get two really. You get the
yeah,
the end forms of both Mr. X and Birkin.
it was yes because it was just sort of you were playing the game and then all of a sudden an alarm goes off and it's like, oh, we've got to get out because the place is going to self-destruct, and I was like, oh, are we doing this already, are we? Okay.
They really struggled to get out of that formula in the early days, and
Yeah.
I completely agree with you there. I think if I had to have one criticism of Resident Evil 2, it would be that as with most of them, the end of the game is obviously nowhere near the high that the beginning of the game is, and
Yeah,
it's
they do that
certainly
all the time though, don't they?
yeah, it certainly tries to like it sticks in extra elements or extra areas that
hmm
feel like they're going to be longer than they are,
Yeah.
especially the factory. You do about 3 or 4 rooms and then the game ends
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt that, but yeah, you're right. It's funny thinking back about it because they do it with the mansion, but the police station is like
Yeah.
so good, and then the rest of it, I think is. I mean, it's still good, but it the environment just doesn't have the same sort of heft to it after you leave the police station.
I think one of the biggest changes that the remake did was the sewer section, which they
hmm
completely dumped off and reworked into that whole different scenario. So when you've got those weird things that come out of the water, like those big blob
Sure.
things,
Yeah.
and it's like it's so hugely expanded upon the sewer section
Yeah, it
in the
really is.
remake compared to
Yeah.
this first one. So they obviously saw that as a weak part of this game, but it's one that doesn't bother me because at that stage you're always thinking that I'm basically towards the end of it now, like I'm in the final hour of the game already. It's such a
hmm
short. I mean, it's such a short game.
It
It's
is.
crazy to
Yeah.
think that like maybe that's offset by the fact that it's got 4 different scenarios to play through. And I could be wrong here, and I could be like saying something totally egregious. But as far as I can, from the top of my head, think of, I don't think there are any other games that have not only dual protagonists, but an A and a B scenario for each of them, other than the remake of this.
Yeah, I don't think
I
so.
cut
Not that I
because
can think of.
3 just has Jill, 1 playthrough, 4 just has Leon, 5 has it's just that one with the 2 co-op guys. 6 has all the different ones, but it's part of the
hmm
same thing. Revelations, I don't think does. The Outbreak games, obviously, they're online. They don't. Village 7, none of them have multiple characters to play as. So I think this is the only one that does this.
Yeah. They do become
Strange that
quite
they dumped
significantly
that.
longer, though, don't they? I guess as time goes on.
Well, exactly. Yeah, more cinematic and yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to remind myself of 3 a bit because I very much enjoyed playing that last year.
Yeah, it's great.
That was a great game. Um, the other guy that keeps like there's a few things I want to. So to ask you about the police chief. You touched on him earlier. What a rotter that man is.
I can't believe that. Yeah, that a man as like inherently evil as that has risen to the level of police chief
Would
without being
you
checked.
write that in your diary? And if you did, would you be so careless as I guess the world has ended as far as he's concerned, so he's maybe not bothered. But like I feel like
Yeah,
Claire did not react to that diary in a way that I felt comfort like I felt satisfied with. Even like when you meet him later, she's just like, "Oh, hiya." It's like you did read that diary. You seen what he did.
yeah. She sort of lets him do his spiel and then calls him out and goes, "Oh, so you did do whatever it is. You are working with Umbrella." What a yeah. I don't know if maybe once he was a bad, he was just a policeman with a tendency for maybe a bit of rape. I don't know, because it did say he was done for. Isn't there a diary entry that I sent you somewhere where it says he was something about sexual assault? Right, I sent you a picture of it, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Here it is. Mr. Irons had been arrested under suspicion of rape on 2 separate counts during his years as a university student. He underwent psychiatric evaluation as a result of the charges, but was released due to circumstantial something or other evidence. It cut off after that on my picture. So clearly he's had so therefore he's had a dodgy past. So he is a bit of a wrong un from then. But he does a deal with Umbrella, obviously, to screw over stars to help them contain what they're trying to hide from the world. Then decides that gives him basically carte blanche to murder everybody in the police station, but not just murder them. Like he sort of sets them free and then hunts them down for sport and then kills them and maybe rapes them in his dungeon. Like he's just a colossal piece of shit. But I love the fact that he talks not like a police, because where is Raccoon City? It's supposed to be like sort of Chicago area,
Midwest,
isn't it?
I think.
Yeah, so he ain't talking like like a typical cop. He's more like an evil supervillain, just like all the others.
To twiddle and he's
exactly. Yeah. So I raped her in the dungeons, eh?
There's so many funny bits with him in it. It's like the death scene as well. The way Claire just doesn't react to anything happening is so good.
Yeah, just comes flying out of the trapdoor, Evil Dead style.
Like, could you imagine your reaction if you were in the room? You've seen that she just doesn't react, just carries on, and then just goes.
Maybe at that point she's just. Well, yeah, as you say, yeah, she just goes straight down the ladder. Like, I'll better go down there anyway.
Yeah,
clearly there's something interesting's down there. But yeah, she does. Maybe she's just desensitized at that stage. Like she's done so much killing. She's like, well, what else?
Also the reveal of the police chief is fantastic when he just spins around in his chair.
Oh yeah, proper Bond villain style.
Yeah.
Just in front of a dead woman, though. Instead of stroking a cat, he's stroking a different kind of. Did you in the Claire B? Did you get the intro video with them in the car together where they crash into a lamppost and that zombie behind them goes flying through the front windscreen and twats his face on a lamppost?
Oh, no,
Did you get that?
I accidentally skipped it. I pressed the button, but I accidentally skipped it. I'll need to go back and watch that.
Yeah. Yes, you should. That is very funny when that happens.
The only difference between them is the starting items, right? Between Leon and Claire. Is that right? So Leon starts with a lighter and Claire has a lockpick. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you don't need the little keys with.
Yep.
Okay.
It's very similar to the first game where Jill has the lockpick, but yeah.
Then the sort of heavy inventory sort of beating you got in the first game.
Yeah, they obviously have a scenario where one will have a bigger inventory than the other, but that is by your choice of who gets the additional kit side pack thing.
The other thing I think
Armory.
before we sort of move on to talk about the game, well, a couple of things actually. I realise that they've obviously been doing it since time immemorial. I will bang on to anyone who will listen to me how much I like the way that the characters sort of can pass things to each other in Resident Evil 0.
Yes.
The vaguest sniff of that in this game, where you can choose to leave stuff behind for Claire when you're playing Leon, and then she'll get it later on as she comes back. As you come back through, what is it? Because you can pick up the extra inventory space or the machine gun. Never ever used the machine gun, unfortunately. I also never used the Magnum because I was saving it for the end boss and then realised that the boss was
that explains why you were disappointed that it sort of abruptly ended, yeah. I can
Yeah,
see that. If you had a B game, you'd like I did yesterday with Leon, you would need that Magnum
oh yeah.
way more. Yeah, you by the end of it, like I was proper struggling with my health
My
and those black liquors.
favorite weapon that I used was the bow. That is such a fun.
Yeah, I love that it fires sort of three of them in like a really random angle,
Yeah,
but they all seem to hit. Yeah, it's great. It's a great weapon, that bow gun. It doesn't really work on anything other than dogs and zombies, but that
it's
just
on.
speeds things up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no quick turn, which
shame.
I thought it was a shame, but initially I sort of got over it because I realised that when you've got auto aim on, you can
Mm,
essentially have a quick turn just by pulling the auto aim and shoot whoever the characters turns quickly to
yeah.
face the enemy, so you can kind of get around it.
I mean, on the GameCube version that we're playing the seamless HD versions of, like there, it's like inexcusable to not have the quick turn in that.
Yeah.
This was it. This was they were released like 4 years after, I think, after this, after the original 98. They were released like
I wonder
2002,
why it's not in
and they
there.
didn't even enhance. They didn't even add a quick turn into two. They
I
just
wonder why it's
dumped it
not. I
out.
don't know why it's not there because it's in the first game, isn't it? So
No, it's
is it
it's
not?
in the remake of the first game,
Right.
but
Okay. Okay.
it's not in OG. It didn't come in until 3, but by the time they re-released 2 and 3 on the GameCube, which they released on the same day, that was long in the canon. It was been in Code Veronica and it was in 4 and the remake of 1. So I don't know why they didn't bother, but
Hmm.
yeah, whatever. If it didn't exist, at least we'd never get the seamless HD. So I suppose it existing is a good thing on the GameCube. But the fact that they just pissed it out was
Yeah.
pretty unforgivable.
Yeah. See, in terms of obviously this is sort of like Resident Evil 2's had a massive impact on you as a gamer.
Mm.
What do you think the wider impact of this game is on the industry?
Oh, that's a good question. There's no question that it's more action oriented than the first game.
Hmm.
That apparently is down to Kamiya not actually liking horror games or horror movies in any way. He apparently really wasn't a fan of a lot of the stuff that was in 1. Like he didn't like the body horror and the gore aspects of all of that stuff.
Oh, interesting.
So he wanted to make Resident Evil 2, in this sort of strong-willed way of I want it to be like what I like, which is Hollywood action movies.
Hmm.
So there definitely was a sense that he'd pushed it further in that direction. And I guess the series largely has never looked back, other than potentially the remakes and the start of 7. But realistically, it has gained more of an action element to it
Oh, it has.
with
I
almost
mean,
each
3 is
iteration for a
significantly
long time.
more. Yes, you're right. I was sort of running through my head there. 3 is significantly more actiony than 2. 4 is more than 3.
4
5
was like the
again.
absolute turning
Yeah.
point of full on action, and then
And then
5,
6 has gone wild.
yeah,
And then they sort of wound it back a little bit and they've
yeah,
cambered
exactly.
things ever so slightly.
So I potentially that, but obviously this was the first time Capcom had ever brought in like outsourced
Mm.
Western voice actors as well. The first time was just local people who were
Yeah.
English speakers that they just kind of dragged in. This time they actually went full on with this cinematic approach. So I guess the additional production values, they must have been
Yeah, that's a good point.
really up there at that point. Obviously, you've got Metal Gear Solid that came out the same year. So this alongside that probably pushed gaming towards more of a cinematic style of presentation. This one was in the Guinness Book of Records apparently for the fastest selling game that year, like more than Mario 64,
Oh
more
wow,
than Final
okay.
Fantasy 7. So I
3 million
guess that was
copies in 6 weeks it got.
it sold well over 1 million in 4 days or something in
Yeah.
Japan. It was flying off the shelves. So I guess that's where I would suggest that its wider influence lies is in potentially games having more cinematic aspects and more action and horror games having more of an action focus.
Yeah, it's
Silent
interesting you
Hill 2
say
maybe
that.
eschewed that somewhat, but that was going for a
Yeah.
different vibe on purpose, I think.
Because I don't know, it's always struck me as a series that has sort of pioneered and in many ways led the sort of horror genre, but has never been fully comfortable being that type of game, if that makes sense. Like it always seems to be looking to be. I mean, like we were just talking about the sort of slant to more and more action heavy games. It was just sort of. It was like one of the industry's sort of grand old franchises, right? It's the like Resident Evil is such a an iconic franchise in the sort of history of gaming. However, it just always wants, or I mean, until recently, because again they've got better, but it always seemed to want more, didn't it? And then it just sort of,
Mm.
I don't know, just never seemed to be comfortable being in its lane, and it always wanted to sort of mainstream itself. I guess maybe that's not the right descriptor.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the transition from one to this, like, we specifically mentioned in our last episode talking about Resident Evil 1 how or maybe when we talked about that when we talked about the original Resident Evil 1 last year, where it really did feel like you could see loads of the tendrils of it being a point and click adventure the way that Sweet Home was on the NES.
Yeah,
And that was obviously what it was going to be. Actually, it was supposed to be a Sweet Home follow up or a remake or whatever it was. So even from that to this seems to drop quite a lot of the more point and click adventure stuff than the first one.
it certainly does.
I
Yeah,
would suggest it kind of uniforms its keys with the oh no, the other one had keys as well, didn't it? It had helmet and stuff and armor. So no, that's not true. But I think I was saying to you, like pressing the A button on doors to just use the key instead of having to like go up and do like
yeah,
inventory and select them and stuff like that.
you're
Doesn't
right though.
quite make its mind up on which side of that it wants to
Yes,
sit, but yeah.
because I found that sometimes you would go up to things and it would sort of automatically use an item, and then other times it would just be
Mm,
like, nah, figure it out, mate. It's
yeah,
just, yeah, you're right. It was inconsistent and
yeah.
didn't quite know which one it wanted to do. Um,
Hmm.
we'll do that. So I'm going to do the plot here, because I feel like I
Okay.
need to get this over with. What I've done is, like I said, it seemed to be suggested that Claire A. Leon B was the canon. So I've tried to do that, and I've also tried to write it concurrently with the characters as well. So feel free to sort of jump in, correct, add comment at any point during this, because
Okay.
this is I've tried to not make it messy, but we'll see how it comes out. Um, so it's September the 29th, 1998, 2 months after the events of Resident Evil, and a disaster seemingly taking place, turning most of Raccoon City into. I've just written zombie things because I can never work out if are they zombies or not. I don't know what the rule is. So zombie things that we're familiar with in Resident Evil or by a biological weapon known as is it? Well, I've written the T virus, but is it the G virus that's done it? No, it must be the T because the G is a
T
super
originally,
weapon.
then G. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, this also happens to be Leon Kennedy's first day on the job at the Raccoon City Police Department, running into other protagonist Claire Redfield, who's coming to Raccoon City in search of her brother Chris Redfield. As with all good horror tropes, they get separated, with Leon and Claire making their way to RCPD independently, where they discover that a similar fate has befallen most of the police department, as well as that Chris has left to investigate Umbrella's HQ in Europe. Leon and Claire again split up to go looking for survivors and find a way out of the city. While searching, Leon encounters Ada Wong, who claims to be looking for her boyfriend, and Claire encounters Sherry Birkin, a little girl seemingly on the run from a monster. It turns out that the police chief Brian Irons has been bribed by Umbrella to hide his evidence of experiment, hide their evidence of their experiments that have been getting carried out by Umbrella on the development of a new G virus that could mutate a human into the ultimate bioweapon. Um, so this, I was going to ask you this question, but you've already answered it. I didn't realize quite how these playthroughs worked, and I didn't realize that Leon encountered Mr. X, which I quite like. Um, during this time, the police officer tries and fails to kill Claire and ends up being killed himself, as we've spoken about already. Claire
Hmm.
and Sherry then attempt to escape through the sewers, but become separated, with a Leon and Ada similarly becoming separated around about the same time. So in this playthrough that I've done, Ada apparently then finds Sherry, picks up a golden pendant that Sherry loses as she's running away.
Hmm.
Ada and Leon are then reunited, with Ada reluctantly agreeing to stick together, soon after which they encounter a middle aged woman who attempts to shoot Ada, but ends up shooting Leon as he jumps in front of Ada to save her. apparently given absolutely no fucks. She then leaves Leon to chase after the woman, who then reveals herself to be Sherry's mother, Annette, and wife of Umbrella scientist William Birkin, the creator of the G virus. In an attempt to protect his life's work from special agents sent by the Umbrella headquarters, which I assume is what Ada Wong is, right?
No,
No,
that's the dudes in the gas masks.
Hunk.
Basically,
D1,
him and
right?
his
Okay.
lads. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't understand his logic here, but he tries to protect his life's work by injecting himself with the
By
virus.
chugging it.
Yeah. Which turned him into a monster, and he has been chasing Sherry because of her genetic makeup. So one thing that I actually wondered before we continue is Mr. X a product of the G virus?
I think maybe, but let's just look that up.
Because he gets dropped off, doesn't he? He's not in the police station as all this is unfolding. He gets flown in.
Um, uh, uh,
He's something.
created via cloning. Hang on a minute. We want Resident Evil. Is one of 6 within the T-103 series that was airlifted into the city and given instructions to recover a G virus sample, kill everything and whatever. A series of mass-produced human bioorganic weapons produced in 1998 from modified clones of the T-002 Tyrant. So this is a clone. It's a modified clone of the Tyrant from the first Resident Evil, the one that's in the tube that smashes up Wesker. Yeah, it's a clone of that.
Right, okay. Interesting. So anyway, yes. And so then why is... I don't think I've got the answer to this either. Why is Birkin apparently chasing Sherry around? Is he just want to get the locket?
Yeah, didn't your notes just say something about it, genetic makeup kind of draws him to her?
Right, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Because I'd read genetic makeup, but then I wasn't actually sure how that sort of manifested itself in the game. But yeah, that makes sense. So Annette once Ada and catches up with Annette. Annette recognizes her daughter's pendant that Ada has and attempts to take it from Ada. A fight ensues with Annette being thrown over a railing. Ada learns that the locket contains a sample of the G virus. During this time, Claire is reunited with Sherry and discovers that William has implanted his daughter with an embryo to produce offspring, is what that said. But
yeah, it's fucking gross, isn't it?
Yeah. Leon, Ada, Claire, and Sherry advance through an abandoned factory connected to Umbrella's secret underground research facility. An attack by William Birkin leaves Ada heavily wounded, and Leon explores the laboratory to find something to treat her wounds. He's interrupted by a psychotic Annette, who says that Ada's relationship with John was only a means of getting information about Umbrella because Ada is a spy sent to steal the G virus for an unknown organization.
Yeah. Assumedly working potentially with Wesker, who has distanced himself from Umbrella in the first game and was obviously not really working with Stars. He just sort of says, I ain't working with anybody, dick. And then obviously Resident Evil 4, the Ada Wong DLC for that, she is working with Wesker at that point.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Leon doesn't believe Annette anyway, and says he trusts Ada.
Hey, love conquers all.
Yeah, it does. Just as Annette is about to shoot Leon, the tyrant appears and she retreats. Ada returns to save Leon and battles the tyrant, which falls into a pit of molten metal.
See, that's Leon B.
That's Leon B. Okay. I've mixed that, okay.
No, I'm saying you've not mixed up, but wherever that's come from, that's suggesting that this is the canon ending.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas Leon A, she turns on him.
Yeah, she does. She does.
Right?
Yeah, she does. Ada is mortally wounded from the fight. She then confesses. They then confess their love for each other before Ada stops breathing
Yeah, for a bit
for a bit.
before she goes and finds a rocket launcher to toss to him.
Meanwhile, Annette tries to escape with another sample of the G virus, but is fatally wounded by her mutated husband. Before she dies, she tells Claire
Oh, the irony!
how to create a vaccine that will stop the mutations caused by the embryo within Sherry. After preparing the cure, Leon and Claire reunite at... Because I never had to make a cure at all, I don't think.
No, that's a Claire B thing.
Yeah. After preparing the cure, Leon and Claire reunite at an emergency escape train. I'd love to see a real life emergency escape train.
Hell yeah!
And inject Sherry with the vaccine, which saves her life. En route, Leon's assisted in terminating the now mutated super tyrant by an unseen figure. Leon briefly thinks it's Ada, but is unable to positively identify her voice over the noise. Grown to gigantic size, Birkin then follows Leon and Claire, but is destroyed when the train self-destructs. So it's an escape train that can blow itself up. After escaping from the city with Sherry, Leon intends to take down Umbrella while Claire continues to search for Chris. Hunk, apparently one of the... I never saw him in my game. One of the
No, you
surviving
won't.
special agents sent by Umbrella completes his G-Virus retrieval mission.
Yeah, that is in the fourth Survivor, which is unlocked if you get, I believe, if you get an A rank in Leon A and Claire B, or the other way around. So you have to play the whole thing through. So A to B of Leon, or not like all four, just two of them, and get an A rank. Then you unlock like a whole new sort of gameplay mode where you play as Hunk, and you've got to go around doing whatever that shit is. I looked it up how you get an A rank, by the way. There's a ranking system that basically gives you points for certain things, and to get an A rank you need to get 270 to 300 points. You can get an S rank in the N64 version. I'll explain how you do that in a minute, but basically you cannot, or rather, if you fire any weapon that takes up 2 item slots, your final rank letter will drop an entire level no matter what else you do.
So you can't fire any weapons that take up 2 slots?
So as far as I'm aware, that's the machine gun and the rocket launcher. You can't fire either of those. If you do, you'll drop to a B no matter what you do. If you do it within under 2 hours, 29 minutes, 59 seconds, you get 100 points. And then basically adding an hour onto each of that. So 2.5 to 3.5 hours is 90, and then 80 all the way down. So there's that. You can, if you do 0 saves, you get 100 points.
I do 0 saves.
Yeah. If you do 1 save, you get 95 to 90 and so on. And if you use 0 first aid sprays, you get 100, 1, 90, 2, 80, and so on. So it's 270. So you could effectively do it in 2 hours, 31, save once and use 1 first aid spray, and you would still get an A rank. Or you could just do it really quickly, never save or use a first aid spray, and you'll get that. But you've got to do it on A and B playthroughs to get that Hunk mode. And I think, yes, and on the N64, you're not even allowed to pick up any ink ribbons or first aid sprays, not use any special weapons, complete it in under 2.5 hours, pick up every file you happen across, and that'll get you the S rank. Mental. But I am determined now to unlock it. I'm going to try my best to, in the next couple of days before we start the 3 remake, to try and get an A rank, because I've never had one in my life.
I want to see it.
And I'm even going to try not cheating. I think I'll give one go where I won't use save states, just to see if I can not die.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I died out of the 4 playthroughs. I think I died in 2 of them. One of them was to a bunch of lickers, and one of them I can't remember what the other one was. Might have been the boss, the train carriage boss. I think. But I think I could do a playthrough without dying. I'm just too scared to save too much.
N64 version hold up? How is that?
I've never actually played it, but I know that it's got some intricacies to it that people find really interesting. There's a really good video that I saw about that as well that I kind of haven't fully watched, but I again will put that in the
Yes.
in the item description, and I will send that to you as well,
Yeah, I'll
because that
watch
has
that
got
tonight.
some weird shit to it that's slightly different.
I'm enjoying
But it's
being down
worth
this.
big bucks.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying being down this Resi hole, so I'll watch that video tonight. I'm interested to sort of learn a bit more about that.
Yeah, it was. It's a miracle that game exists on an N64 cartridge, but given all the FMV and the soundtrack and stuff that they had to cram in there, it's like a real feat to get it on
Yeah,
there.
I actually want to see some of those cutscenes because the N64 was not good at like
No,
recording voice and stuff like that, was it? In
no,
video.
it'll be tinny as shit, I would imagine, but it'll be on there.
Mm.
Because I remember, like, even on the old wrestling games, if you tried to listen to like the music in No Mercy or whatever, it was like 10 seconds of a song and then it would loop, rather than on the, you play the PlayStation SmackDown games, you're getting full song CD quality soundtrack stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some development facts. I've tried to my mission was to see if I could find one that you wouldn't know, but I very much doubt I'll manage. But I'm going to run through some of these.
Okay.
The development, like you said, apparently began just a month after the completion of the first Resident Evil game in '96, which you knew about.
Actually, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
There was some stuff I wanted to tack onto the story.
Yeah, let's go.
I forgot about earlier. So apparently, although Chief Irons and Annette both die in Claire A,
yes,
only Chief Irons' body will be present in Leon B. Annette's apparently has disappeared by the time you see her as Leon there. If Claire defeats the alligator in her A game without using the gas cylinder to shoot him, like blow his head off.
Can you do that? Can you?
If you just shoot it.
I essentially thought he was indestructible without the gas cylinder.
I guess he's not. So if you don't use it, then it's there. Then the alligator comes back in Leon B. If you don't shoot its head off with the gas cylinder, suggesting that you don't actually kill it with the twin conventional weapon. So maybe you're right; it is indestructible that way. But if you do use use the gas cylinder to blow its head off, then it won't come back in Leon B, which you saw the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because then you just meet up with Ada anyway, because she's on the other side of the door, isn't she? Mm-hmm. She still apparently says that's 2 I owe you when you reunite with Ada, even though you haven't actually saved her there from anything. You've just shown up. I think that was actually all I had there for some little additional notes, but I found some little wrinkles in that playthrough.
Yes.
Right. Sorry. Now we can go to your
I've sort of written this as a bit of a blurb, but I'll just break up because you don't want me just talking at you. But the development team numbered about 45 people, and just over half had worked on the previous game. I was struggling to sort of figure out when I was sort of reading different sources, and I could only find it in one place. Apparently, Shinji Mikami and Kamiya didn't always get on very well, but I was struggling to stand that up. Do you know anything about that?
Well, from what I was reading in Itchy Tasty earlier, Mikami obviously very much believed in Kamiya, and as I said earlier on in this episode, Kamiya was kind of confused why he got given the job of being the director of the game so quickly in his Capcom career. But Mikami, I believe, is very much, well, we talked about this for Resident Evil 1, didn't we? He's a perfectionist. He is very hands-on. Apparently he would like flipped tables over at people. People would like come at him telling him after they canned 1.5, apparently loads of dudes came to him being like, spin off Kamiya, he's fucking useless, you don't know what he's doing. He'd start flipping tables over and challenging them to direct the game instead, and then they'd all sort of cower away and be like, oh no, sorry. So Kamiya has gone on record to say like that he would not be who he is as a person or as a games director without Mikami. So there's clearly respect there, but I can understand that both of them. I mean, I think I'm still blocked by Kamiya on Twitter, which is quite funny because I just wanted to get blocked by him because it seems like a badge of honor, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we got Bayonetta into the Video Game Hall of Fame, I tweeted him to say, look, I've got this game in the Hall of Fame for you. He immediately blocked me because that's what he does if you tag him in anything. So they are both hard-headed, stubborn characters. So I can see how they would have butted those hard, stubborn heads, but they clearly respect each other.
The
Fucking
game,
blocking me, prick.
yeah, before marketing, the game budget was roughly $1 million, which is amazingly cheap these days. Imagine that.
That is
Um,
ridiculous.
the game development team, so this is like sort of intermingled during sort of the 1.5 chat, but the development team wanted to retain the feeling of fear and foreboding for the first game. From the first game, they wanted to use protagonists, and to do that, they wanted to use protagonists that had a little experience of terrifying situations, which is why Leon's a
Ah,
green cop, new first in the
yeah,
job with no experience, and they basically took a college student and they thought, oh, young and inexperienced, that'll do for the second
classic.
character.
That's a
Yeah.
classic horror
Um,
character. Yeah.
the original idea was to use, like I said, Leon Kennedy as a green police officer and a college student and motorcycle racer, Elsa Walker, who just happened to be on vacation in Raccoon City. And in the original inception of the game, which was ultimately dubbed, like I say, like you've mentioned, Resident Evil 1.5, these characters never met at any point through the course of the game,
Oh
which
right.
would have been odd and strangely stunted. I think that would have been.
Uh, well, yeah, because I think that kind of leans back into why this scriptwriter came in and basically had a go at
Yeah,
Cameo and being like this doesn't flow. There's no
yeah,
emotion. There's no
hmm
like. There's not a proper because apparently Cameo was asked afterwards what if he was upset or whatever, what his feelings were about them canceling it, and he said. It truly was a piece of shit. It was boring, devoid of vision, and a poor excuse for a horror game. I was actually relieved when we cancelled it.
Oh,
So he knows what he did.
yeah. Um, it was also originally planned that each of the two main characters would also have two support characters. Obviously, they ultimately
Yeah.
ended up having one each. Um,
Oh, right. Sorry. So they'd have two support characters
yeah,
each.
so Leon
Right.
would
Okay.
get help from Marvin, who ends up dying obviously very
Oh,
early on
yeah.
in the final version, and a researcher named Linda, who seems to have been an early version of who would become Ada Wong in the final game. Um,
Right.
Elsa would have help from Sherry Birkin and a man named John, who would eventually become the gun shop owner at the start of the game. He was
Good
originally
old
going to
Bobby
be,
Kendo.
yeah. So
Mm.
he was originally going to have a much bigger part of the game, which I think, and I wonder, because I wonder if that's why they changed that name as well, because Ada Wong's boyfriend's called John, right?
Yep.
Yeah, assume there's something to do with that as well. Um, in the original version of the game, apparently real world examples influenced character designs by the game's artists. So, for example, they based Leon apparently on one of the artists, the lead artist's bloodhound dog, who's basically just this loyal, brainless idiot that just
Oh, right. Not physically.
no. um, and Annette Birkin on actress Jodie Foster, for example.
Well, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. In the 1.5 version, the police station was much smaller with a much more modern, realistic design. There were more encounters with surviving policemen, such as Superior Officer of Leon named Roy. Enemy models
Hmm.
used fewer polygons, which allowed for much more zombies to appear on the screen than
I
the
think you can
original
have.
game.
I think this game has. Yeah, this has 7, and the
Yes,
original has 3.
that's
Sorry, I
right.
don't know if you were about to say that.
I may have that somewhere, but no, that's correct. Um, the game employed dynamic music, the 1.5, and altered pre-rendered backgrounds in response to gameplay events. The playable characters could use equipment such as protective clothes to enhance their defenses and
Hmm.
enable them to carry more items, which we see a bit of in the
Yeah.
final game. Character models were altered by costume changes and by damage received by enemies. So I may have this somewhere, but if I don't, the original sort of 1.5 version, they wanted to have wounds show up on the character models rather than be able to see if you're taking damage, you would start seeing wounds and stuff appear on your character. Um,
Okay.
but again, they dropped that, and to try and replicate that and show the same thing or along the same lines, that's why they changed the sort of walking animations.
Yeah, which is not in the original. They didn't. They don't do anything if they're more injured in the original Resi one. They just are. They still run
Yeah.
the same speed.
hmm
They don't limp or anything.
Um, believing the game's assets were good but not quite finished as a whole, Mikami expected that everything in the 1.5 version would sort of come together in the last 3 months leading up to the projected May 1997 release date. Soon after Resident Evil 1.5, after he said that in an interview, he scrapped the whole game. And he said it was the game at that point was around 60 to 80% complete.
Yeah.
Kami later explained that the game would not have reached the desired quality in time, and the game and locations were dull. So
Yeah, delayed it by a year.
Yeah.
It's unheard of kind of at that time, really.
Yeah, that's a good point. When they decided to restart development, they found that very few of the models and assets could be reused. Originally, they planned Resident Evil 2 to be, like I said, the end of the series, but they decided at some point money to create it and make it like a James Bond thing that would just run. You've alluded to this as well. They had to create a through line, so Elsa was reworked and replaced by Claire. They had also planned to have, like I said, I think I've said this before as well, many zombies on screen that would, and they wanted the main characters to have visible wounds appear. These were also scrapped in the final version of the game, opting to have more detailed and fewer zombies on screen. Like you've said, the FMVs were recorded using a stop motion style of recording, using real models that they then cut together into an FMV. Ada's model during this wasn't finished in time, so she's the only main character to never appear in a pre-rendered cutscene.
Oh yeah, because even Annette and William are in pre-rendered cutscenes.
Yeah.
So wow, yeah.
She sort of does kind of show up at one point, because when she chucks the, I think, is that a pre-rendered cutscene when she chucks the rocket launcher?
No, she's just sort of a shadow,
it's
isn't
just
she?
a black shadow, yeah.
I think that's an engine, that one, yeah.
What do you think this game's... Oh, actually, here's my last fact for you. Resident Evil 2 was temporarily banned in 1999 in Italy following criticism of the political organisation Movimento Diritti Civili, a civil rights movement, for its realistic depiction of violence, with the law enforcement agency seizing over 5,500 unsold copies. Sony asked for a re-examination of the seizure decree, and the ban was lifted a few months later.
Huh. Wow. My ancestors trying to ruin it for everyone.
Are you Italian, are you?
Yeah, apparently. On my mum's side, anyway.
Should you not be able to handle the heat then?
Oh, you'd have thought that. I mean, I've got the Roman nose, but yeah, not the heat handling ability.
Not the
just
ability.
Just got the body hair and the bent nose.
Yeah, I think I've asked you this already. What's this, like, the legacy? What do you think is the sort of, I don't know, how important a game is this in the sort of grand scheme of games?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer if you're trying to decide whether this is more important historically than the first one. Maybe the critical and commercial reaction to this game sort of solidified that survival horror was a big deal and was here to stay. Certainly in terms of Capcom's thinking, as they were going to give up after that. I'm not entirely sure. I just know that my personal belief is how much better it is than the first one. Really just ramped up the level of quality that was coming out of Capcom on 3D enabled machines in terms of these cinematic horror experiences. Like, they really upped their game and kind of never looked back.
Do you think this this is sort of only jumping in my head just because, like, again, I've finished writing a piece about Tony Hawk. How has this sort of affected your gaming life? This game, did it change anything? Did it solidify things? Did it change your taste in any way, do you think? Or did it
I'd say it definitely changed my taste. This was, as you know, we go through every time we talk about Resident Evil on this podcast, that I was kind of brought into the Resident Evil sphere by a friend of mine who sort of sherped me through all the games. We would play every year. We'd probably play a couple of them through to completion, sort of together. You know, we'd come hang out with each other, and I would typically be in control of the game, and he would be directing me. There were times when we'd sort of pad swap, but most of the time it was him talking me through it. So that was quite early on in our friendship as well. You know, I'm still friends with the guy now. This was back when we were 15, so you're talking over 20 years ago now. So I was a very big, just like I had N64 at that point. Like I hadn't ever had a PlayStation, and my sister may have had one, but she was playing like Crash and Spyro on it or whatever. So I was very much still in the Zeldas and Marios of the world, and hadn't really played a lot of more mature games up until that point, like genuinely mature games. I'd played, you know, Street Fighter or whatever, but nothing that was like a 15 or 18 rated game outside of maybe GoldenEye.
Oh yeah.
So that introduction from Chris, and then just developing this love of it between the two of us, where we'd play it so much, and every year, like I say, we're recycling. Right, what's the last? You know, when did we last play Code Veronica? Oh yeah, let's play that one. Okay, so next we'll do 3, and then just I wouldn't have felt the way that I did about Resident Evil without that introduction to it. I think if I was coming into it much later, like you were, then perhaps or even now, like younger people who get involved with it now may find the things like the tank controls too prohibitive, or the fixed camera angles, or the voice acting, or whatever. But that, as I said, will never bother me, and will always just feel comfortable to me. As the more I get older, the more I play these games, I don't ever get bored. I don't like them any less. I just, especially the originals, they are very, very special to me. So, and they always will be. And I'm just glad that you are loving them too. And we're getting to do this like every year for something that I look forward to in the summer.
Yeah, it's I've been looking forward to this one, and it feels good that we've finally sort of it feels good, and it's both interesting now that I think we've just about ticked off. Well, 4 is the only one that we've got to go to, but like we've sort of ticked off the big ones now.
Yeah.
And it's
so
now
you
going to become a more sort of, I don't know, interesting sort of dive into the series. Like as this continues, it becomes a much more. I mean, even for you, it'll be we're sort of beginning to look at the periphery around Resident Evil.
Yeah. Did you play? So again, you've dabbled in the games when you were younger, didn't you? You never owned them. Was this one of the ones that you had played? Was this the one that you had played?
I think this is the one I had played. Yeah, I had it on PS. I would have owned it on PS1. Yeah. And then there's, I think I got to I guess I just in a previous podcast, maybe the last one or one that KDB was on. I was heavily damaged, and I got to the room where the clicker jumps through the sort of glass see-through window.
The interrogation room. Yeah,
and like I had no health, and I was massively injured, and he just would. I think he jumped through, and I just turned my PlayStation off and never played the game again. It's like, well,
yeah,
that's me stuck. I can't get past him.
Yeah. I'm in a corner now. That's it, done.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting again coming back to these games. Sort of, I think we've done it in the right way because I've been able to sort of develop an appreciation for the tank controls and sort of slowly become attached to the franchise, so that when we're now going back to these sort of older games, I'm primed and quite happy to play them, and they feel fine. That's the thing I think. Again, like critique of old David when we first started doing podcasts is I remember being quite critical of like I said, I think I say this from time to time, the obtuseness of these games. They're not obtuse, and they still play well. Like I don't anybody that thinks they are like again like previous David, I was speaking shit because like they are perfectly fine. They're still excellent games to play. They've aged very, very well.
Yeah, we're obviously helping to gloss over that with these special sexy versions that wonderful human beings are making in their own spare time for no money. I mean, every version of the original games now has a really, really impressive graphical update to it. Apparently, I think this one also has a version, like an updated version for the PC game as well. And I believe that one does then allow you to add a quick turn in with some kind of trickery. But that one's more along the lines of what you did to play the original.
Yeah.
Which is a bit more fiddly than the sort of GameCube seamless HD ones. It's like the upscale versions that's quite hard.
Yeah. yeah,
But yeah, I mean, they'll always play well to me. But I can see why people would think it's a bit odd if you just don't know what you do. Because even you and I, like, you know, watching or catching myself do it or watching you do it, there will be moments where we're kind of like running on the corner of a wall,
oh yeah,
completely
constantly,
stationary, just looking like
yeah,
twats. But it just doesn't become an issue anymore because you barely even notice it. Or you may just stop, go, "What am I doing?" Take a step back and then turn the tank around or whatever. But I don't know how this would actually put somebody off. But I do see people on the Reddits and stuff banging on about how they just can't play them, and I just think they're
I get
robbing
it.
themselves of genuinely fantastic video games
Yeah,
and
yeah, they
important
are
ones.
massively important ones. I mean, like I say,
Mm.
like it would make most lists of like the biggest, sort of most recognizable games franchises.
Oh yeah,
Has to be. And it's yeah, it's just to me it's rare that a game sort of stands the test of time like this. Like this series has been going through so many iterations. I try to think of other games that have gone through similar changes. I mean, Tomb Raider is probably one that has
yeah.
gone through similar changes over the years. But yeah, this one, apart from a couple blips, I mean, to be fair, they
Oh
did almost kill the franchise. So
yeah, and that's it as well. Like the different iterations are not necessarily always a good thing, and they're not necessarily always indicative of a series that's growing in
mhm,
in the way that it should be. Whereas, I mean, you look at Mario and Zelda; those two franchises basically reinvent their own wheel every time they come out, at least on a new platform, or in a new generation.
yeah,
You think about Mario World to 64 to Sunshine to Galaxy to Odyssey, like that is, they're all so fundamentally different from each other, but most would agree that they are growing better, whereas Resident Evil has gone way more like a bloody heart monitor, up and down.
it is. It's that is probably taking years off your life as well, stressing you out and upsetting you, and then coming
Well,
back.
it goes back to what you said a few podcasts ago, where when we first met, it was sort of I had my mask tied to Nintendo and Resident Evil,
Yeah.
and at that point in time, but neither of them were doing me any favors. I was playing Wii U and fucking Umbrella Chronicles or some shit.
How are your notes looking, Alex? Have we dusted
I
off
think
and
we've
covered most things? Is there anything else you want to
I've,
mention?
I've probably got some observations. I guess I think the liquor is far better of an enemy than the hunters is. It's, to me, more iconic.
Oh
It's
yeah, that's a great point.
scarier,
Yes,
better.
absolutely. Um, I like that you can hear them coming and things like that. Like you walk into a room and if you're listening properly, you'll know if one's there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. I think you could hear clicking from Hunters, couldn't
Oh,
you?
could you?
Yeah. Maybe that was just in the remake. Not entirely sure, but I still think this game has some, maybe not as like kind of, what's the word, genre defining moments that the first game did, because that obviously invented what genre we are now currently
Yeah.
talking about. But I think it tried to emulate those in equally successful ways. I think the liquor climbing on the window that you walk past right at the beginning in the
Oh
police station
yes.
before you then go into the room and see him, obviously in a proper FMV cutscene. The there's obviously the crows that break through the window now instead of dogs.
Mhm.
That one probably doesn't hold as much weight as the original scare there, I guess. Um, I do still love um the dumb sort of animations on some of the characters. I still really love like
Yeah.
Leon's wave when he sees Claire and
Oh
Sherry
yeah.
together
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
time. Just every time they like put their hands on their hips and then lift their arms at like a weird angle as they're talking, it always makes me laugh. We enjoyed very much earlier on the Claire giving Sherry a hug and then just sort of looks up all sad, like, I can't believe the man who invented the G virus is this girl's father. Or while she's just hugging her. It's so good, like looking off into the distance. Interesting as well that they decided to not retcon in, but I suppose explain that rats carried the virus into the city. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because obviously, that's when Birkin drops all of his vials, isn't it? After he's been shot, and then some
that's
rats
right.
come
Yeah,
and start
yeah.
eating it, and they bugger off.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed how they that's how they explained away the spread of the zombies, that it was all rats. That's quite a cool little twist, because that's not really something. I think we said about this before, haven't we? Where Resident Evil zombies are obviously chemically manufactured. They're not the dead coming back out of the grave because hell is too full or
of
whatever.
course,
Like older zombie George Romero films were. Don't think I had anything sort of written down now, notes wise. I very much enjoyed watching you play for it. Did you have any like interesting little tidbits that came up while you were playing that you wanted to bring up, or
trying to think.
obviously your accidental reloading of a save state instead of
That
saving a
almost
new state?
that almost broke me, but it ended up being not so bad. I tried to make a quick save and reloaded a previous save, and it put me back. I mean, it probably did lose me a good 40 minutes. However, it was just coincidentally lucky that was like 35 minutes of me fucking about going somewhere I shouldn't have been going.
Yeah, you absolutely got back to where you were in about 5-10
Yeah,
minutes
because
max.
I
Really
was like,
didn't take
I am
very
I
long.
done? I was like, I don't know. This may be it for me.
I did hear you mutter to yourself, how much more of the game have I got left to do, to
Yeah.
sort of see if it was just worth pinning it off, but then you powered through. I was very impressed by that.
Just had to rally, just pull it together. I think the spiders are weak. They're not particularly fun to interact with, and as you mentioned correctly, so when I was playing the game, if you just run by them, they are just not. They're not dangerous. They're not. They're not really anything.
They do have sort of like a burst of speed to sort of close the gap on you. Which is this the one? Is this the game where the dogs sort of rubber band towards you? Is that this? Is that what people say about these games? Where if you run from a dogs, it kind of like zaps them behind you to teleport them. It's either that or it's one of the later ones. But I'm pretty sure it's these earlier games where if you run to a camera angle where the dogs aren't, they will kind of zap the dogs to the edge of that camera, and then they can run, sort of catch up and keep that level of tension behind you. So I don't know if the spiders react in the same way, but I think both of us went through a scenario where we tried to take out spiders, probably off my terrible advice to use the grenade launcher as Claire with the
I
flame round
find
in it.
consistently that auto aim wasn't very good at shooting things that weren't on the ground. So if they were on the wall, if a licker was on the wall, quite often I'd shoot up and it would just totally miss.
Oh yeah, that it cannot be relied on for anything at height. It has to. You have to do that part yourself. And the spiders, as you say, like if you run away from them, they seem to have to stop to attack you. It's not like the dogs that will leap at you out of the air. The spiders will run and then stop and then spit acid or flail around their shitty little legs. So you can just basically ignore them. They try and make it harder because they put you always in like knee-high water to get away. It's just not worth it.
Why? I guess I've got two questions, but the first is it the version of the game we played, or is it in all the versions that when you kill a spider or a licker, they go weird stop motion when they die? It's like the frame rate on just that thing, on just the spider, just goes down to like 3.
It's weird, isn't it? Like the legs sort of like flailing about is really low frame rate for some reason. I don't get that. I've never seen it not do that.
And then when you're like putting the medallions in to get rid of the waterfall, why can't you just walk under the waterfall? What's so dangerous about the water? You can't get through it until like you just.
That is a very good point.
The game loves a comedy fall over a railing as well, which I was very much enjoying.
Can't get enough of that. Yeah, Birkin absolutely loves them.
Yeah,
it's almost like his calling card.
Yeah.
That one where I was watching you do earlier, is brilliant because that one as well. Like you can still shoot him. You don't necessarily know the fight's over. You had restraint enough to not waste loads of ammo on him as he was stumbling about. Whether you were having to reload by luck or something, I don't know. But you can still kind of attack him, and it's not that evident that he's dead. And then he does the same thing on the little, what is that? The sort of train cart. It's not the train, is it? It's like when you go on that big lift in the little.
That's got a train. Yeah,
got a little carriage on it or something. Yeah.
There's on that, like there is some like when, I mean, it happens a few times, but some of the like getting hit animations. So like when the police chief gets dragged under like through the trapdoor, that is so funny watching the thing get dragged down. But there's another amazing one where, is it when Ada gets injured by Birkin? Is it maybe, or Mr. X, when he like jabs a hole through the train card sign, like knocks her over. He just absolutely cleans her out a bit. Her sprite is so funny the way it falls over.
I enjoyed as well how when you're on the train on the way out in the end, and this is in the CG cutscene, where having just like injected Sherry with the antidote for the virus, or the embryo or whatever, the train kind of has like a jolt and she just gets flung off the bed, like absolutely face plants the floor. There was no need for them to do that. I at one point had loads of zombies coming at me, and I think it was when you get the shotgun parts, which I think I saw you had in your Leon playthrough. In fact, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, right. I've just figured out the whole timeline and erased my confusion from when I was watching your Leon playthrough of the final like sort of dog tyrant Birkin thing, of why you had Magnum bullets but not the Magnum, and that's because you were saving the Magnum for something that you thought was coming later and got caught off guard.
Yeah.
I was like, man, he's got some balls, taking his Magnum ammo but no Magnum and shotgunning this final boss. But with that shotgun, I had 3 zombies come at me at one point, and I fucking cut them in half. And I don't think I can remember
What?
seeing that happen before.
No.
So I split them at the waist. So all 3 of them in one shot, all their legs just hit the deck, and then they were all crawling with no legs behind them, just torsos crawling. I didn't know you could do that.
No, I don't think I
Because
did
so
that.
often I'm shotgun aiming upwards to get the headshots out of the way. But this one I must have thought, I don't know, they're not close enough. But I was so happy to see that they basically, slice them in through the guts. Brilliant. Cammy must have been hating. He must have been throwing up everywhere.
He's vomiting every time.
Yeah, just like, don't show me the just I'll take your word for it. I bet it looks great if you're a fucking psycho. If he could block them all on Twitter, he would. But I like how the B scenarios try and just apparently their given tactic is, I'm going to put liquors where you think there aren't liquors because there weren't liquors before.
Yeah.
So chief among those, there's that room with the statues in it, the ones where you put a ruby on their tits.
Yes, he comes through the ceiling.
Where in the first scenario, in the A thing, it still has that camera angle of like looking up at the ceiling, which of course, you know, if we were talking about the original game, would have had sexy Jill in an upskirt position before they vetoed that. But I love how in the first scenario for both Leon and Claire, and you have to go in there a couple of times as well, I was always thinking that liquor's coming through the ceiling right now, and then it never does until the B scenario. There's obviously
After
the
you've
one.
Forgotten about it.
Yeah, there's the autopsy room down in the sort of car parky bit where I said to you earlier I was expecting to just walk in there, grab the thing, and then run past all the zombies that wake up, and then there's just 2 liquors in there instead. That is definitely their go-to situation. There's loads of them in the last bit as well. In there when they get those, I don't know what those black liquor variants are, but there are so many of them towards the end of the B scenario. Certainly for whatever it was I was doing the other day, Leon or whatever. Without the acid rounds, they're a right pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Claire is undoubtedly the easier playthrough, I think. The weaponry that she gets, aside from the Magnum, so potentially having to use grenade rounds because the gun doesn't seem to fire them very far and sort of spreads out like 3 of them, doesn't it? It kind of just spreads them to the ground. Maybe proper bosses take longer than if you just Magnum them. But I found that overall her general arsenal with the bow gun and the acid rounds and the flame rounds make basically every standard enemy you're going to come across one-shottable as Claire, that they aren't with Leon.
Yeah.
So I find her the easier playthrough, certainly in like scenario A.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, overall, awesome game. Had a great time with it. Are we ranking it?
Yeah, we are. You should have the ranking, I think, from last time.
Oh, should I?
Maybe. Yeah.
Let's have a look. Let's bring out the old Google Sheets. No. What will it be in? What's it called?
I don't know where you wrote it down.
It must have.
So I sent you
Penny of
I sent you the
Madness.
picture, and then you just wrote out a document with our additional changing of. We changed the order. We put 3 higher up, and we added 1 in there somewhere, but I don't know where we wrote that down.
Yeah, where did we write that down?
Still trying to find out what those black
Resi
liquors are.
Banking, that'll be. Here it is.
Hey, nice. Oh, it's just called an evolved liquor.
The old evolved liquor.
Have undergone further mutation from being locked in the underground lab for so long. Yeah, they're the ones that done me in. Oh, it actually tells you. What is this? Evilresource.com actually tells you how many liquors there are in each version. Yeah, there's 5 more in Leon B and Claire B of those black liquor bastards or evolved liquors. They killed me.
Right, so we have,
Oh,
for the
that's a nice
listeners,
looking spreadsheet.
at the moment, we have got, and it is the 11th best Resident Evil game of all time, Resident Evil 6. 10, we've got Resident Evil 5. Number 9, we've got Resident Evil 0. Number 8, we've got Resident Evil. Number 7, we've got Dino Crisis. Number 6, we've got Resident Evil 7. Number 5, we've got Resident Evil Village. Number 4, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. In the top 3, we've got Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil Remake, and Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's sitting at number 1. I'm assuming it's going to be up near the top.
Mm.
I'm not going to fight this really. I mean, to me, I would have it. Do I like Resident Evil 2 remake more than I like
Yeah,
the
I
original
don't.
game?
I mean, it's not wrong to say that it's probably functionally a better game in the remake for sure. It's scarier, and it's got Mr. X actually being a threat. But
Mr. X being a threat, yeah, and he's also wearing
this
a
one,
hat.
yeah. But she now has a head. But yeah, there's like I say, there's a comfort, there's a nostalgia, there's a warmth, there's a charm to this version that
I mean,
I love.
I'm not going to fight this one particularly. I mean, if this was a David only list, I think it would be coming in at 2. But I
Behind the
mean,
remake.
yeah, but it's
Yeah,
close. So I mean, if it's a winner for you, then I think it goes in number 1.
yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
And then I need to see if I put 4 back above it, or if you want to put it there. You probably won't.
Yeah. I think I'll like the remake better.
I think you will too.
What we just call it, Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, we've got remake written there. That's fine.
Well, we've got a new winner then. Interesting. Number 1 and 2 are both Resident Evil 2. And 3 of the top 4 are the remakes,
Yeah,
which shows you how
but
good a job they've done.
and then now we just will the Resident Evil 3 remake go above Resident Evil 3? I don't think so.
I think that's unlikely. I can tell already because I'm a big fan of that Resident Evil remake. 3 OG. I suppose it's time to bring it home then, Alex, isn't it?
Yeah, my man.
Like I say, next game up, we've got Resident Evil 3 Remake, so get playing that, listeners. We may have another podcast between. I don't know.
We've got a special episode for episode 100, which is the next one.
Yeah,
we
so we
wouldn't
will then.
let that one go by without
No.
celebrating it properly. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 Remake will come in episode 101.
I can't believe, before we bring it home, I can't believe we're in the summer of Resi, which generally takes up about a month of our time. We have played through 2 whole games and we're only midway through the month. The reason I'm shocked by that is because I feel like we did not rush to market.
No, this has been ages.
Yeah.
We banked loads, didn't we? And then
Mhm.
I went on holiday, and then you got a new job, and so we had to kind of
Take our time a little bit.
stop playing. Yeah, take our time a little bit. Exactly.
But yeah, we're still here, and we've got finishing up. I was going to say we're finishing up. Are we finishing up Summer of Resi in style? We're certainly finishing it up. I guess
It's
the style is to be decided.
indeed.
Um, But yeah, that brings us to the end of another episode of the A Winner Is You podcast. If you like what you heard, and even if you didn't, why not give our numbers a bump by subscribing to our podcast on your podcast feed of choice? Or if you prefer to consume your podcast in a visual format, you can head on over to YouTube, search for A Winner Is You podcast, where you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If the podcast is not enough for you, you can also follow us on the website formerly known as Twitter at Winner Is You Pod, and you can even send us an email to tell us how wrong we are about our gaming and movie opinions when we have them. By the way, talking movies before we wrap up. Oh, in fact, I'll get this out of the way, and then people that aren't interested can bounce. To winnersupod@gmail.com. Alex has not Twitter at SuperThrillix, and I have deleted my Twitter account, so I'm now on Threads trying to have that. At David Smiley.
What even the other one,
Yeah,
the new one?
I can't in all good conscience be on Elon Musk's hellhole of a site anymore after he
Hmm.
started his shit chat about civil wars and freedom of speech when he seems to
Yeah,
actually not
fuck.
know the definition of freedom of speech. Anyway, head over
Yeah, he's a
there,
cunt.
yes, and search for Winners You Pod if you so wish. That's for TikTok. Alex, any housekeeping?
Well, I think we should have some video game Hall of Fame stuff out by the time this one drops. It's probably gonna be games where you play as an animal. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested.
Games where you play as an animal.
We've actually it's taken me
Real
so long.
animals. You're not allowed. So, like Spyro the Dragon would not be allowed.
Yeah, no mythical animals, no kind of no made up animals for video games' sake either. Anthropomorphic ones are obviously fine. Otherwise, you don't end up playing like Stray and Tokyo Jungle
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
Tokyo
I
Jungle is
don't
a
know.
game that I need to play at some point in my life.
I agree. And if it's not that at this point, then it will be based off of a random selection. It'll be games beginning with H, which drove most of us insane with the fact that we already had Halo and Half-Life 2 in the Hall of Fame. So didn't have a lot left to choose from other than a different Halo or something stupid.
Hatoful Boyfriend.
Oh shit! Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's terrible, but
You can go and date
that's
some
why.
pigeons.
Yeah. What would you think mine would be? And also bearing in mind that Hades, I've tried to get in the Hall of Fame before and it lost, so I wasn't going to bother doing that again.
So no Hades, no Halo, no Half-Life.
Simon picked Hexen, which big fucking respect for that. What a lad.
Yeah, that is a good game.
Steve picked Halo 3, fucking wanker. And that was Hexen, not Hexic HD, which I brought up as an honorable mention.
Oh, Hexic, yeah.
That's not a bad game, actually, considering it was built into the original 360, wasn't it? Well,
Yeah.
not built in, but it was free to download or something. Maybe it was built in, actually. I think it came on the hard drive, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. That teaches me to try and read and listen to a conversation at the same time. Yes, it did. It was the built-in game that I always remember is the Snail Maze game on the Sega Master System. That is the one for me that there was
Snail
yeah,
Maze
in the Sega
game.
Master System. I don't know how you did it, but there was two built-in games on that console. There was a motorbike racing game, and there was a snail maze game. It was basically you're a snail going through a maze.
Right.
I am having a quick.
I think if you've just Googled games that begin with H, you should be
I
able to
feel like
find what you think mine would be.
assume it's not Heavy Rain because that's
You
the
assumed
plot
correctly.
hole where you
I'm
are
not having, yeah.
I can't handle it. It's like ruined the whole game for me. That really.
Why do not enough people talk about how stupid that is?
Oh, I don't know.
Like it's fine to have that twist and reveal that the policeman's actually the murderer, but don't have his inner thoughts.
Yeah.
Act like he doesn't know that. I can hear him thinking lies. What is that?
You've not played Hellblade yet, so I don't think it would be that.
Yeah, I have played the first one, but
We
I
have
didn't get on with it enough.
Helldivers 2 you didn't get on with. Homefront
Yeah.
is a game that should be better than it is. The idea of that game is better than the reality of it. Did anyone pick Hi-Fi Rush?
No. I don't think anyone's played it other than me for a bit, but
Oh, I would have picked Hitman 3, I think.
Rob was disappointed that he didn't pick Hitman by the end because he's a big fan of this. But I just, again, I haven't been able to have enough fun with those games the way I want to pick them, and it upsets me that you and I don't live closer, so we couldn't just double team it.
That's the way me and Scott played this game. Is Hotline Miami must have been there.
There we go. He's got it. Yeah, of course it is.
It is the way. So if you ever get good internet down your way, that's the way we'll need to try and play it that way, because that's genuinely fun. Sort of try to almost race each other through the game.
Yeah.
What
do you think my game where you play as an animal was?
I'm struggling to even come up with animals in games. I don't know. Oh, Diddy Kong Racing, shit, yeah. Oh yeah, Donkey Kongs, yeah, okay, there's plenty.
Yeah, I mean Sonic the Hedgehog, but no one picked one of those.
Conker.
Oh, that's one where Rob was a dickhead about it. I forgot about that. Conker, yeah. Rob picked Persona 5 because there's a cat in it that you get to play as in your party.
Oh, he's being.
He went, yeah, that's just cheeky if you ask me.
Yeah.
And I totally embarrassed myself in a bit that will be cut from the episode where where Steve picked Earthworm Jim, and I was like, yeah, well, worm's not an animal, but whatever. And they were like, yeah, it is. Of course it is. I was like, nah, it's an insect. They're like, it's not even an insect, mate. And even if it was, it's still an animal.
I did something similar. I was once confused about whether a fish was an animal.
Apparently everything's an animal.
Yeah, I think so.
Everything. But I didn't realise that. I don't know why. I obviously, or maybe I did, but I just thought I'd try and be smart. But well, worm's not correct.
Is Earthworm Jim alive, was he?
Yeah.
I guess
worm's an animal.
He is an animal. Because I was thinking, because
he's just a worm in a suit, isn't he? So he's technically just a worm. He was the most allowed of all of them. I mean, I suppose all of mine can drive cars, but they're animals. Simon's pick was Quackshot on the Mega Drive, which is a Donald Duck game. Pretty good. But
I played Quackshot.
It's no Diddy Kong Racing, mate.
Nah, that's the winner, I think.
Oh, and Rob's pick for games beginning with H was Horizon Zero Dawn.
I saw that in the list of H's when I was looking at that. I was like, oh, Alex is definitely not picking that.
I did mention that you're a fan of it and that you got platinum for it, I think.
I think I do.
From what I can remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, games. We were so upset. The H list is not great. Like I say, when you've cut off Halo Combat Evolved and Half-Life 2, you're swinging it.
I think the hardest thing about your list is you're only allowed to pick one, because I'd like to pick like a serious one and then like a hey, remember that game, if that makes sense.
I guess that's our our honourable mentions.
Like Heist. When I went mad for that game about 2 or 3 months ago. Is it Heist? SteamWorld Heist. It's an S.
Oh,
fuck that.
I did say that. Like, it's a shame we didn't have like any word in the title has an H in it, because then you're opening yourself up to more things like Monster Hunter or Tony Hawk. One of my honorable mentions was Hypno Space Outlaw. Did you ever play that in the end?
Hypno Space.
Yeah, Hypno Space Outlaw is that one that it's like a sort of a detective mystery game, all set in like a 90s GeoCities website stuff.
No, I never played that. Is it good?
Incredible work of art. It's just hard. It just
Yeah.
gets confusing after a while. And then the other one I could only come up with Hyrule Warriors,
Oh yeah.
which is a 7 out of 10 all day long. But I enjoyed it.
What's that game that it's like a rhythm based game. Does that begin with an H? It's like a I don't it mustn't be an H. It's like see like it's like a top down thing and you've got to move and attack enemies in time with the music.
Oh yeah,
Because there's a
Crypt of
high
the Necroid Dancer.
yeah.
Yeah, that was called Cadence of Hyrule. Yeah,
Ah shit. I was like
yeah.
maybe there's a Hyrule version. Anyway.
So
On
that's the
that
housekeeping.
that's the housekeeping. On that bombshell, I've been Dave, he's been Alex, and we have been a winner's shoe. And I'm out.
Keep gaming.
Well,
I assume you have it.
I think I must do, yeah. Unless it's on Game Pass.